Good evening, friends. Welcome to the India Power Talk. India Power Talk is a knowledge sharing initiative. We invite thought leaders, domain experts to share their insights, experiences, and strategies related to economy, environment, and education. Today, we will explore a topic at the intersection of technology and the betterment of society, future technologies and impact investments. The term impact investment refers to investment in projects and enterprises that seeks to make a difference in the world. Fortunately, we have a guest who is extraordinarily well qualified to shed light on the topic and these pressing questions. It is an honor and pleasure to greet Dr. Jane Thomason, a CEO and founder with a strong track record of international leadership in the areas of healthcare and social services. Let me welcome Dr. Jane Thomason. I'm so glad to have you join us for the first time, someone from Australia on India Power Talk. Thank you so much for being here. And may I, to begin with, I would like to hear from you how you became involved in impact investment.
Hello, Nitin, and hello to all of your audience. It's wonderful to be sharing some of my experiences with Power Talks and with people in India. I've actually done a lot of conferences and webinars into India, particularly during the pandemic. And while the pandemic is a global tragedy, some good things have come out of it. And one of those things, I think, is that we speak to each other more and we have opportunities like this to be able to share. And I think people and knowledge has become more accessible. So thank you for having me on Indian Power Talks. It's a real pleasure to be here. Now, you asked me about impact investing and how I got interested in it. Well, let me start by saying all my life and all my work has been around social impact. And when I had my company, it was really about working mainly with emerging economies and how we could help them strengthen their healthcare systems and strengthen their education systems and empower women and so forth. But I think that what people have learned is a couple of things. One is that if it's just done on the basis of, let's say, charitable or philanthropic donations or government grants, you don't build anything sustainable. So I think one of the things about impact investing is it's investing in a traditional sense, but you're not just investing for shareholder return, you're investing for a social impact that you define, that our current economic system doesn't actually look after people and doesn't actually look after the planet. It's really all about shareholder returns.
Absolutely. You said it. In all this time, we were talking of shareholder value every time, and also for the other stakeholders, and we never seriously, I would say, thought about the planet and the people. And the pandemic has really forced us to really think about that. And as you rightly mentioned, knowledge has become very accessible, and connectivity has helped us to really think about very seriously about these genuine issues facing our planet. What are your current three top focal points for impact investments, if I may ask you?
So let's start in healthcare, because you mentioned about that. And I think that what the pandemic has taught us is that we can change and we can pivot and we can do things digitally that before maybe the medical profession is conservative and they're risk averse and they didn't want to change. So I actually think the pandemic's been a good thing because it's forced that kind of change into medicine. So whether it's things like remote care or secure data sharing, as we've needed to share all the data about the pandemic, or if it's about even payments where people can't use cash anymore, digital payments, yes, which have become much more important, and education and communication and getting messages out. So the first thing is, how do you leverage those sorts of changes that have been possible during the pandemic and drive further change, particularly in terms of digitalization in healthcare? The second one that I'm really interested in at the moment is around decentralized finance and everything that's going on there. Because I think what we're seeing, is some extraordinary innovations that are going to be able to make a big difference to financial inclusion in particular. India is one of the top 10 countries where the proportion of adults holding cryptocurrencies is the highest. People are now being able to earn money and put food on the table through playing games and trading NFTs.
Really phenomenal. I'm sure this can really change the and help a lot of emerging economies, in particularly the poor students or poor people, illiterate people, to really change their lives. Not to change the capitalist economic system, especially as it has developed since 1970, has been keenly focused on shareholder value rather than a well-being of society and the environment. Though we see huge mission and vision statements of large corporations which talk of well-being of people and planet. Now, it values economic growth and continues to concentrate capital in the hands of few. Now, may I ask you to share your thoughts on this situation and how impact investment could change it?
Look, I think it has to change. I mean, the challenge, however, basically what we're doing is concentrating more and more and more of the wealth in fewer and fewer people's hands. This is not morally right. And what we know is that there's vast wealth and resources in the planet. And if we can share it better, then we can make a lot of people's lives better off. And if we incentivize people to focus on climate change and the planet, we can actually secure our neighborhood. But I think that this is going to be a battle royale, if I could use that, because we're witnessing that already and in the whole area of blockchain. Because what we started to see, people dismissed blockchain in the beginning, saying that it was just a bunch of anti-government libertarians and it would never last. But we're now at the point where institutional investors are wanting to invest in digital assets, are looking at the ways that it can be used, not just in the speculative cryptocurrencies, but in the tokenization of real estate and in the tokenization of rare metals and new currencies backed by gold. So there's a lot of innovation going on, and the decentralized finance that effectively does what the traditional finance system does, but without intermediaries. In fact, as I said, institutional investors are investing, central banks are investigating digital currencies. China's already launched its digital yuan. This is here to stay, and it's going to unseat the traditional financial system. But what I'm hoping too is because these blockchain token ecosystems can incentivize the kind of behavior that we want, I'm hoping that we can use it to incentivize, for example, around carbon credits and climate change and regenerative agriculture. This is not played out at all. And regulators have got very excited in a lot of countries, and they're trying to figure out how to regulate it. So different countries have responded in different ways. But I predict that in time, we're going to have to sort out how we can utilize these new technologies to make the world a better place.
What role you mentioned about regulators? So I would ask you as to what role, according to you, can any regulator or any government agencies can really play in making this a reality?
Well, they simply have to. The problem that we have is that both regulators and governments are usually struggling to catch up, because it's the technologists and the companies that are making this stuff, and it's really fast, and technology's accelerating into exponentially, and governments and regulators are struggling to catch up. So I think we're going to see the locus of innovation moving to some extent from the West to developing countries where you've got these young, motivated populations who can do things, who can change things using technology.
See, as you rightly mentioned, the governments would be always slow in reacting to the changes in technology. Let me put it differently. It is not government which are slow, but the technologies are very fast.
Which makes the government slow.
Which makes the government slow. Now, how do we really bridge? And I personally see a huge role of universities in this, and young population really playing as an intermediary between the government and the technologies. How do you have any view on this? As you see, countries like India, where is the starting point? How do we really get on to the running train and catch what's happening?
Well, let me say it in a different way, because education is absolutely critical. But one of the things that universities themselves need to innovate and change. So I was
Yes.
very excited, maybe 4 months ago, I was on a webinar to launch the digital university in Kerala in India. Because universities have to change from the old style bricks and mortar. You don't have to go to a classroom to listen to a boring professor lecture you for an hour to learn things now. So the potential to be able to teach things both through video, but also through gamification, which is a way, particularly in technology and teaching people how to code, so they've got developer skills that they can actually sell into the gig economy and earn money, is becoming really important. So it won't just be universities, because a lot of other institutions, some of the companies that are building the technology are setting up foundations to teach people about how to use the technology, for example. I think universities have to rapidly change, or they're going to be out of date, and they're not offering, because what you want for your child, I'm sure, is that they're job ready and they can get a job. And we're moving into a skills-based economy. So we need to prepare our young people, not so much that they have a 4-year university degree in accounting or business, but they have skills that they can sell now to companies who want those skills. So I think universities have to get very much up to date. But the third piece about universities, and I think this is where they really can play a role, is, you know, technology is moving at the speed of light. The technologists are excited about what they're doing. They're not necessarily thinking about the consequences of what they're doing. They're not necessarily thinking about the ethics of what they're doing. And that's where universities can play a role as an independent third party who can look at this and who can say, you know, that was terrific, but it had some unexpected consequences there. And no, if you're building algorithms that are making decisions about whether people should get bank loans or not, you have to think about this, because you can ruin people's lives simply by one small decision that the algorithm is making.
I must just add here that India last year in 2020, we have launched a new education policy for complete India. And of course, it's the policy document right now. And the government is already taking steps. Every state has set up separate committees to implement the new education policy. And the new education policy, I must say, is a wonderful document. The proof of the pudding would be how do we implement it and how do we take it to the student community. But at least the government of India has initiated and come up with a new education policy which talks of all this what you are talking right now. Dr. Jain, let me from here, the connected question which I would like to ask you is, let me take you to the core of the subject. Now, could you please talk in slight detail about the specific technologies you feel merit greater impact investments, and why do you feel that?
Well, look, it's hard to pick any specific technologies. I should say that I entered a technology quite late in life. I discovered blockchain in 2016, and really it was because my son told me that I needed to stop being a dinosaur and learn about this, which I did, and then I got really fascinated with all of its potential to be transformative at so many levels. But then, of course, moving into technology, I then understand that it's unlikely to be just one technology ever, and blockchain in a sense is going to be an infrastructure layer, but there's going to be AI, and AI is obviously becoming increasingly important, IoT, the drones. There are so many technologies now that are all going to come together. And I think people are saying that by 2050, we're going to have this sort of convergence of humans and machines, where we kind of seamlessly work together with machines to do things that they can do faster and better than us, and that we use some of our, I guess, more creative and humanistic qualities to complement the machines. So, and there's a term called singularity that you may have heard. Yes. But I think that's what we're really moving ahead to, because it's not about whether you believe in technology or not, it's just too late for that. The pace at which it's taking over is extraordinary. And what I think we need to be doing is looking out at what technologists are building and how it solves the problems that we have. And when they have sustainable solutions, they're the ones that we should be investing in. And they're the ones that we should be trying to get to scale.
So, Dr. Jain, you have much experience in the healthcare. Okay. And I also have talked about the role of healthcare and healthcare data in improving people's lives. But one question which is very critical and associated with this is, how can we reconcile the right of data privacy and ownership with the need of global healthcare statistics? I mean, we spoke about ethical technologies being used. So, is there any issue around it, and how are we addressing that?
So that's one of the things that blockchain has really been lauded for, is the ability to be able to secure and transfer data in a very private way. And there's some interesting projects going on around something called self-sovereign identity, which means instead of Apple or Google or Microsoft or a hospital or a radiology provider owning your health data, you own your health data, and you have the choice to permission other people to access your health data. So instead of you having to go, and what's more, your data is everywhere, right? Your doctor's got some, your hospital's got some, the health insurer's got some. You can't put all of your data in one place. So what people are working on now is the possibility that you can hold all of your data on your mobile phone, and you can choose what parts of your data you want to make available to your doctor, to your GP, but also to make your health data an investment for you. So it means that you can also choose to sell your data set to people who would like to use your data for medical research, for example.
Dr. Jain, you have a great experience of India. India, as you know, is a country with great potential that faces many challenges because of our geographical reasons or because of our vast population. Now, you draw a great deal of experience here. Now, may I ask you to apply this thinking of technologies to India, in specifically, and what would you be advised?
Look, I think, and I mean, for example, I went to Chhattisgarh in 2018, and the government there really, and they have a population who they live in trees, and they're illiterate, and they're not connected in any way to the government system. And they had this idea of buying cheap mobile phones and giving them to the people, and then using the technology to allow them to access government services and other things that they were entitled to. So, it takes someone with some vision and an idea. There's another great project that I'm following, which is helping farmers with their insurance for loss of crops and things like that, because I know that suicide amongst farmers, for example, is a big problem in India, and so people are working on ways to try and protect them from the seasonality and other issues that allow them to be able to survive when they have crop failures and things like that. And there are also quite a number of projects that are trying to help the farmers get a better deal. Everything around financial inclusion, so people can actually get access to the financial system and not be subject to loan sharks and things like that, because they're able to access it easily in a digital format, I would think would change things. But I think the incredible thing about India is just your opportunity to scale things, and to scale things cheaply and widely. And now that you have such high mobile penetration, this really becomes a potential. And then if you add that with what I was saying before about voice activation, you really can get what I believe is truly the bottom billion connected to knowledge, the internet, and the opportunity to be able to access things that have been so far out of their reach. But the final thing is you also have the corporate social responsibility law, where your biggest corporations need to give a proportion of their earnings back to social impact projects. And that's a massive opportunity. but it's maybe something that the government could be trying to harness that for this kind of digital inclusion and the digital opportunities that the technology have given us to build those kinds of things for the poor in India and for young people in India, because they need a future too. And the beauty about digital is if you've got one of these skills, if you can code, if you can build, you can be at home. You don't have to leave India and go and live in another country. You can, if you've got mobile and you've got connectivity and you've got skills, you can sell them anywhere.
Dr. Jen, you have built an extraordinary career in the fields that continue to be dominated by men. So do you have any advice for young women, Indian women setting out on a career path?
That what I want to encourage the young women is to really have a dream and to go for it. And I mean, India, there's a lot of cultural issues that make it more challenging in India than maybe it was for me growing up in Australia. But nevertheless, you have some extraordinary Indian women role models. And we know, again, in the technology field that there's opportunities for women to really be able to shine. But I think it takes courage, and I think it also takes a willingness not to take a setback as a failure and understand it, that it's a learning opportunity. Women can support other women because often women lack confidence. They're nervous, their mother-in-law doesn't want them to do this or something. And they need someone else to say, yeah, I had the same problem. This is what I did. It's okay. You can do it. And encourage them, you know, find role models, find mentors, find women who will share their experiences with you, their hardships and how they actually got through them, because it's not easy for anyone to be successful in business, whether they're a woman or a man, but women often have extra responsibilities and challenges to be able to do it. And we've seen that in COVID as well, because you know, people have expected women to be in the home looking after their families and their children, and it's often hard for them to continue to maintain a job or a business. So we know that it's hard, but it's not impossible. And I think that, you know, we women who've been lucky enough to be successful need to inspire other women to follow us.
Would you like to make any closing comments that you would like to share?
Only that I think India is one of the most fascinating, extraordinary countries that I've ever had the privilege to visit. And I think, even if I think back to when I first went to India to now, the changes that have been made, you know, just the whole development, for example, of your IT industry from nothing to being, you know, absolutely a powerhouse in the world. And some of the work that's going on in smart cities and some of the things that I'm aware of, you know, like India is a machine and you have so much potential. And I think the potential is in harnessing the possibility of these technologies to making life better for people in India, but also you can now take the Indian expertise and you can share it all around the world, and people want it. So I think it's like, this is the dawning of a new era of opportunity for India. And I think you're going to see people wanting to invest in India and wanting to be part of that growth story, which I'm very confident is going to happen.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Jain. I am finding short of words to really sincerely express my gratitude for your valuable time and insights. And it has been a great pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure, and I really appreciate you having me on your show.
Thank you, Dr. Jain, once again. And I would like to thank the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Indian Chamber of Commerce, the Wadhwani Foundation, Law Seco, and the India SME Accelerator Network for providing the audience. Let me conclude with the humble prayer to the Almighty to bestow mankind with the right spirit to fight the coronavirus and help restore peace, prosperity, and well-being. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.